Valerie F. Horn is a real estate, business, and commercial litigation attorney, a high-powered litigator with over 26 years experience. She graduated as top of her class from the University of La Verne, and now she celebrates an 85% trial success rate throughout superior and federal courts in the state of California. Let's meet Valerie F. Horn. Hello, Valerie.
Good morning.
And thanks for coming in.
Thank
Please
you.
sit down. And I have to start off with an 85% success rate. That has got to be about as high as you could get. And correct me if I'm wrong, if you have somebody who, say, has a 100% success rate, which are virtually non-existent, they would be so selective in the cases that they'd be taking that even that wouldn't be legit. They would only take slam dunks to be able to get a 100% rate, right? So 85%.
Yeah, first of all, I don't really think that there's any case that's slam dunk.
Okay.
In the practice of law, you never know what the result is going to be because the judge is the one who's going to make the ultimate decision, or the jury. And sometimes we just can't predict what the result's going to be. And a lot of times I feel like I've got a winner. Unfortunately, the court may not agree with me in every case that I think I should prevail, which of course I think I should prevail in everything. And so the hardest part about the practice of law for me is to be able to adjust to the defeat.
Well, still, you don't have that bitter taste of defeat very often. 85%, that is really impressive. How long have you been licensed and been a practicing attorney?
I've been licensed for 26 years, and I've had my own firm for 20 years now.
Well, tell us, I kind of gave an overview of your areas of practice. What areas of law is your firm dedicated to practicing?
Mostly real estate litigation, business litigation, and commercial litigation. And more recently, I've been getting into financial elder abuse cases because the population is aging, has more longevity, and there are more elderly people. And you see oftentimes where the family members are gaining an undue influence over the elderly people who have assets, and then manipulating them so that they gain access to their assets. And so I've been focusing a lot on that financial elder abuse aspect of the law at this point in time because, first of all, I find it's interesting. Second, the elderly really need protection. And, with a lot of times they have mental impairment or other issues, the illnesses, and so they're vulnerable. And so they really need to have advocacy and protection.
Well, I like that because when you're picking on an elderly person, it just has the effect of being even more of a bully than, to take advantage of someone who, maybe doesn't have the same defenses as that very person might have had 10 or 20 years before. It really is particularly, I don't know, not obscene, but it's
egregious.
Egregious, yeah.
That's what I feel. That's why doing the work I'm driven by passion because I hate injustice, and especially when you're dealing with vulnerable elderly people, that is just, it's outrageous in my opinion. And I just got off a case where the accountant ended up with all of the elderly person's assets. And in that case, I represented the heirs at law. And we had to go all the way through trial with this accountant who ended up with all this elderly woman's assets. And we were victorious to have the trust set aside and his privileges revoked. And then, just damages and attorney's fees. And so, he really went down hard. But it was a very, very vigorous fight. And so, it takes a special attorney to take up the cause because most oftentimes those cases are on contingency, and so you need to have the stamina and the endurance to go through several years of litigation for the elderly person or the estate of the elderly person in order to have a payday.
Well, on the business and real estate side of your practice, give me an example of a typical case that might be in those areas.
Oh, I do mostly everything in the field of real estate. And
So part of like the purchase, facilitating the transaction in some way, or it's not necessarily disputes that have come up over a piece of real estate?
I do both pretty much in real estate. In one particular instance, I handled a very contentious transactional matter about a piece of real property in Bel Air, California. And so I was brought in just to do the consummate the transactional aspect with a very difficult buyer. And so after like 3 or 4 months of finally, maneuvering, we got the transaction closed, and my client sold the property. However, the case did end up in litigation, which I knew it was going to end up in litigation while the transaction was being consummated, but we were able to consummate the transaction, which was my client's objective, and strict orders to me to get the deal done.
Well, now getting back to your amazing success rate, how many bench and jury trials have you had? And I know the results are staggering, but tell us again what your results were in those bench and jury trials.
I've had 8 jury trials, and I've had 5 wins, 2 losses, and 1 deadlock.
Not too bad.
Yeah, the deadlock was very tough. I was against a very, very seasoned, excellent litigator on the other side, and the jury just couldn't make a decision, and so it deadlocked, and then we had to do another trial. And so then, fortunately, the parties were just so worn down at that point that they ended up settling instead of having to go through the second trial.
Well, and I know that often is the goal, to actually get a case settled rather than taking it to trial. How do you go about successfully resolving a case for a client to prevent going to trial?
Well, the way I approach litigation is every case I take is going to trial. And that's how I litigate the case, as if I'm going to go to trial and I have to convince 9 out of 12 people that I'm right. And so that's the way I approach litigation. I don't think you can ever really count on settling or anticipate settling. Reasonable minds differ, and sometimes you're not dealing with a reasonable mind on the other side. And so you've got to go to the mat and you've got to win. So it's very important that for me to approach litigation like that, because I need to make sure that I get all my ducks in order and so that I can prevail.
Well, how do things get started? What can a potential client expect on his or her first visit to your office?
The potential client can expect exemplary service, intelligent approach to the law, creative genius, and thorough research. I think that research in the law and motion aspect of litigation is really where you rise or fall as an attorney, because that's the law. And you got to be able to, put the facts with the law, but if you have a solid knowledge of the law, then you can argue convincingly.
Well, Valerie F. Horn, your contact information is up on the screen now, and I know you do put in that work, and the success speaks for itself. So, and more than work, you're using skill and expertise and creativity and everything else. And again, I assume that's why you have these great results. Thanks very much for coming in, and I really wish you great continued success.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Valerie.
Thank you.